Dalio's idea begins with a simple observation. Every nation rises when it creates more than it consumes. It builds industries, ideas, innovation. And as wealth grows, so does confidence, until ambition turns into arrogance. The Dutch Empire dominated global trade in the 1600s. The British Empire ruled the seas in the 1800s. And the United States, for the past century, has been the center of global finance. But Dalio reminds us, no empire stays on top forever. Because prosperity over time breeds complacency. People borrow instead of produce. Governments print instead of earn. And debt becomes the silent poison of the system. Ray Dalio built his life around understanding one simple truth. Credit creates both growth and collapse. When credit expands faster than real productivity, an illusion forms. An illusion of wealth. People feel richer. Asset prices rise. Politicians celebrate. But behind the scenes, the system becomes fragile. For decades, the U.S. has run on that illusion. Massive borrowing, low interest rates, cheap money. Every crisis was solved with more liquidity. Dot-com, housing, pandemic, inflation. Each rescue was like giving more painkillers to a terminal patient. Dalio called it the long-term debt cycle, a process that takes 75 to 100 years to reach its breaking point. And in his research, that breaking point always leads to the same result, the transfer of power, from one empire to another, from one currency to another, from one world order to the next. Dalio's charts, his interviews, his books, all pointed to this moment. The year when America's dominance would begin to fade and a new competitor would rise, China. He didn't say it with anger, he said it with mathematics. Every empire, he explained, follows a life cycle. Rise from low productivity and unity, prosper through innovation and trade, overextend through debt and war, decline through division and devaluation. And if you overlay these curves, you can see it, the intersection, the point where the old power descends and the new one ascends. Right now, in 2025, that intersection is visible everywhere. The U.S. debt surpasses $35 trillion. The dollar faces silent competitors in digital currencies. Inflation bites into savings. Trust in institutions crumbles, and the social fabric, the unity that built the empire, begins to tear. Meanwhile, China has become the world's largest trading nation, the biggest holder of U.S. debt, and the core of global manufacturing. Its economy, slowed by debt of its own, still represents a new axis of power, one that challenges the Western system built after 1945. Dalio always said that empires don't just collapse. People lose faith first. They stop trusting their currency. They stop believing in their leaders. And eventually, they stop believing in the future. That's when revolutions begin, not with violence, but with disbelief. We can already see this psychology spreading. Young generations reject traditional finance. They seek safety in gold, Bitcoin, and assets beyond the system. They don't trust the promise of pensions or savings accounts. They trust volatility more than stability. And that's what Dalio feared the most. Not the fall of a country, but the fragmentation of belief. Because money is nothing without belief. It's just paper or numbers on a screen. But belief turns it into power. Belief builds empires, and the loss of it destroys them.
So what does collapse really look like? It's rarely sudden. It's not an explosion. It's erosion. Step by step, confidence disappears. Step by step, the system eats itself. Rising debt burdens, widening wealth gaps, political polarization, declining education and productivity, weakening leadership, and ultimately, external conflicts. Each sign is visible in 2025. The U.S. faces record deficits while interest payments now exceed military spending. The middle class, once the backbone of stability, feels squeezed from both sides. Asset bubbles burst quietly, while luxury consumption explodes. It's a paradox of late-stage empires. The rich grow richer not because they produce more, but because money itself is being devalued. Dalio warned, when the return on capital is lower than the return on debt, the system begins to cannibalize itself. And today, that's exactly what's happening. Ray Dalio didn't invent this theory. He observed it from centuries of cycles, from Rome to China to America. He studied how each empire handled its decline. The wise ones adapted. The arrogant ones resisted. The Dutch, when their financial power faded, built alliances. The British, after losing colonies, reinvented themselves through finance and diplomacy. But those who denied the decline, who fought it with denial or aggression, burned with it. Dalio's message wasn't about fear. It was about awareness. He believed that if nations and individuals understand the cycle, they can adapt instead of collapse. Because while empires fall, civilizations evolve, and those who prepare survive the storm. 2025 might be remembered as the year the cycle turned, the moment when we shifted from expansion to contraction, from illusion to reality. But Dalio would ask, what will rise next? Some say it's China. Others say it's technology, the digital empires of data and algorithms. And some believe it's no nation at all, but a decentralized world where power is distributed through code. Whatever form it takes, the principle remains the same. Those who understand debt, cycles, and human psychology will always stay ahead of those who ignore them. In every interview, Ray Dalio repeated one line: pain plus reflection equals progress. That's the essence of his worldview. We grow not through success, but through crisis. We learn not when we're comfortable, but when the system forces us to adapt. The collapse, therefore, isn't just destruction. It's the cleansing of the old, a reset that makes room for new ideas, new systems, and new belief. He often said, the greatest tragedy of history is that people forget what happened before them. And that's why he built principles, timeless rules to survive changing times. Principles like, don't mistake debt for wealth. Don't assume your currency will last forever. Don't ignore the lessons of history. Don't panic, adapt. These are not investment tips. They're survival codes for the next world order. Today, as markets shake and currencies stumble, we are not just witnessing economic shifts, we are watching a change in civilization itself. Technology, politics, culture, everything is being rewritten. And as the old order fades, the new one hasn't yet taken form. That's what makes this moment so dangerous and so full of opportunity. Because every collapse in history also gave birth to new wealth, new systems, new leaders.
Those who understood the moment, who saw through the illusion, built the next empire. And that's the silent challenge Dalio leaves for us, not to predict the future, but to understand the rhythm of change.
The collapse Ray Dalio warned us about isn't coming. It has already begun. But collapse is not the end. It's the beginning of understanding. Because history doesn't repeat by accident. It rhymes through human nature. And if we can learn from the rhythm, if we can adapt instead of fear, then maybe, just maybe, we won't be the next empire that falls.